it was bound to happen sooner than later. Federal lawmakers were not going to take lightly the letter from President Goodluck Jonathan, where he subtly criticized the National Assembly for not making appropriations to the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Federal lawmakers in the House of Representatives brought up the issue in a motion which noted what they say is a persistent, blatant disregard of the resolutions of the House by the Executive. Moving the motion, Representative Garbadati said the President has not implemented the resolution calling for the removal of the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Ms. Aruma Oteh.
The House observes that the motion urging the removal of Ms. Aruma Oteh, for instance, hinged on the fact that her appointment as Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission was a gross violation of the acts of the Commission Act, as she does not possess the minimum professional qualification prescribed for appointment to that position.
Reps Minority Leader said the disregard of National Assembly resolutions was demonstrated in the letter from President Goodluck Jonathan to the National Assembly, where he tackled the National Assembly over its resolution on zero allocation to SEC during the consideration of the 2013 budget proposal.
I believe the advisors of Mr. President, particularly the Attorney General, should draw his attention to Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Mr. Speaker, the President also stated that we as a House, the effect of what we did was to shut down the operations of SEC. Well, I say no, sir. What has shut down the operations of SEC today, Mr. President, is your refusal to obey the resolution of the House.
The House of Representatives insisted that President Goodluck Jonathan implement the resolution of the House by removing the Director General of SEC, Ms. Aruma Oteh. The House also directed the House Committee on Legislative Compliance to monitor and ensure that the resolution is implemented by the Executive. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Well, there you have that. Mr. Ziko B. joins us now. He's a capital market operator and a lawyer. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
For this, again, the team seem to be taking it one step further from the last time you came. And now they're citing all sorts of shadows, Fiscal Responsibility Act, resolutions of the National Assembly. It just keeps going on. Where do you see all this headed, by the way? You think they're on the right for this one?
Honestly, I'm surprised that this matter keeps cropping up. One thing people don't understand is that these kind of resolutions cause a lot of damage to the capital market. A station where the capital market efforts have been made to rebuild this market that virtually collapsed a few years ago. We get a new DG who is very, very competent and very qualified. And then suddenly we have these resolutions coming and going and never seem to end. It creates a lot of problem, in the market. It creates some uncertainty. Even gives impression to foreigners that we are not very serious in what we do. I'm surprised anybody's talking about Aruma Oteh's qualification.
Why are you surprised?
Because the basis for the House of Reps resolution is that she does not have the requisite experience or qualification. I beg to disagree completely. The section that deals with the qualification, which is the ISA section 32A, talks about the DG having been a university graduate and having at least 15 years cognate experience. The word cognate means related experience in capital market operations. Section 315 that defines a capital market operator, which the House of Reps has relied on.
That's the Fiscal Responsibility Act?
No, of the Investment and Securities Act.
Okay.
Which they have relied upon to determine her qualification, applies to a capital market operator. I am a capital market operator, those who perform specialized services in the market. It does not relate to the regulators or those who are in SEC. They are regulators, not operators. So I do not understand why that particular clause should be used to apply to the DG. It doesn't, in my humble opinion.
All right, let's assuming that were the case, and the members of the House of Reps, assuming they also do know this, but if they come up with a resolution, this notwithstanding, should the executive arm of government stick to the grounds and say, well, resolution of the assembly or not, we will have to stick to our grounds? Or how should they have been handled? Should they obey first and then tell them, well, actually, you're wrong on this? Or how do you recommend they go about it?
Well, there has been this debate as to whether resolutions of the House of Reps or the Senate or both houses are binding on the executive. This debate has been on. I believe that in a situation that in the current government that we run, if there are resolutions of the House, the executive should look at them, and if they agree, they can implement them. But I don't think, from the Constitution, that these resolutions are in themselves binding on the executive. I believe that the executive should consider them and see whether what they have said there in those resolutions should be implemented. If they say no, they should get back to the National Assembly and say, look, this is the reason why we cannot do this or we cannot do that. Or that, just like the government has said now in the proposed amendment to the Act, they've said the clause we inserted there, first of all, it should not have been there. It's not part of the budget and shouldn't be there. And also, inserting that clause there inhibits the operations of the capital market. And I've also had in other debates where they say that what the House has done, in effect, is like abolishing the SEC. Because if you say that they cannot operate or do anything, then you are in effect abolishing it.
But there's a clause. It wasn't a blanket statement that they cannot operate.
Yeah.
What they say there is, unless the DG is out, then you go back to, of course, allocating those funds.
Yes, but you see, when they passed this law, I had also looked at that law, looked at SEC law. Do you know that the SEC Act, ISA, gives the SEC board the powers to disburse whatever funds that they have? It's there in the law.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes,
finish it.
The Appropriation Act merely said that you cannot do this. It did not repeal that law. Because if they really wanted to ensure that SEC does nothing else or spend money, I believe that they should have taken steps to even repeal that section of the law.
But that wasn't done.
That wasn't done. You remember the CBN problem. CBN says they have a right to approve their own budget. And the National Assembly says, no, you don't have. What the National Assembly has tried to do now is to amend the CBN Act to ensure that all their budgets come to the National Assembly. Maybe that's what they now need to do. But the way the law stands at the moment, the SEC has the powers even to disburse the funds that they get from penalties and rest of them to be able to operate their everyday expenses.
Well, as it is now, until we get to see an amendment to that, well, that's the situation as you just stated. But again, you started off by taking us through what ordinarily one would have thought would be so simple, trying to define cognate, which should mean a related experience. And if we have that clause there that says, well, you have your prerequisite qualification should also, or a cognate experience, something related to what she's doing at this point in time. Are you saying the National Assembly, the House of Representatives specifically, when they passed that motion for her removal, and it was later on backed by the Senate, are we saying that they didn't see that word cognate, or they don't really understand why that word should be there? Don't you think that perhaps maybe she doesn't have related experience as stated in the statutes?
Well, let me say that, you know the process for appointment or appointment of any DG, the minister recommends to the president. I'm sure the minister who recommends must be satisfied.
In this case, finance.
Finance, with the qualification. It then goes to the presidency. I'm sure the presidency, the attorney general, everybody would look at it and be satisfied that she is qualified